right, I have the honor and pleasure of introducing our next keynote speaker. Gina Neff is a professor of responsible AI at Queen Mary University in London. She runs the Minders Center for Technology and Democracy at the University of Cambridge and is the Deputy Chief Executive Officer for UKRI Responsible AI UK and Associate Director of the ESRC Digital Good Network. I have a list of many boards that Gina serves on, including the Social Science Research Council, Institute for the Future of Work, and Reset Tech. And her academic research has won both engineering and social sciences awards. She led a team that won the 2021 Webby for the best educational website on the internet for A to Z of AI, which reached over 1 million people in 17 different languages as part of Google's AI skills training. I'm particularly inspired by Gina's significant contributions to our understanding of technology, how technology and data shape human work, and ultimately how we can design AI that truly serves people. So let's give a warm round of applause and welcome to Gina Neff.
That is so very kind. I'm going to hopefully put this here so I won't be rustling. You won't hear people rustling during this. It's great to see all of you. And truly, thank you, Cassidy, for all the work bringing us together. And I'm sure you've had a really packed couple of days together. I'm here to talk about some of the stories we're not telling about the Gen AI revolution. So at the end of 2 days together, and of course the other successful Oxgen summits that this amazing team has put together, you don't really need me to tell you that we stand in an unprecedented moment. We're really collectively participating in what is an extraordinary social experiment. The scale and velocity of the transformation that people feel like they're going through is really mind-blowing. And in just the past few years, we've seen AI capabilities advance from very narrow applications to systems that engage in sophisticated reasoning, generate creative content, perform complex analytical tasks. And until recently, we thought those were in the domain of human expertise. And yet, we're not having really important conversations about people and how they work and what they need to be doing to make this transformation happen. I see this time and again in the work that I do, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about how we build the future that we want. Now, I spent 15 years studying automation in construction. So when I say build, I mean literally build. I've watched people build skyscrapers, hospitals, and engineering facilities. And some of the lessons that we've learned in that work, I think are incredibly important for us to pay attention to at this moment in AI transformation. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw on these lessons of watching an industry, watching a sector automate a slice of their professional services work to show what we might be missing in our conversations about AI and work today. But first, just a few things. I'm sure you've seen these. This is from our World in Data. This is just the speed of the growth in AI compute over the last few years. We're seeing this extraordinary growth in compute power. It means that today's large language model systems are processing ever larger amounts of data, and these technical gains are really impressive. But along with these technical gains, we're seeing a high concentration of where the research on AI happens. And industry now dominates technical AI research. Now, there's nothing inherently bad about that, except we're not translating these technical gains into social gains. The architects of this grand experiment of rolling out AI They speak with remarkable confidence about what people, teams, companies, and industries are going to do with these tools. These technology leaders across Silicon Valley, Beijing, innovation centers worldwide, they tell us that what we're looking at today is really the defining technology of our era. It's one that's going to unlock productivity gains, solve complex global challenges, and usher in an age of global unprecedented prosperity and capability. But the leaders at the forefront of AI are telling us that their tools are so powerful that this technological progress is all but inevitable. That is, the stories we are telling about AI are telling only one part of the story. They're telling a technological story. Research from Oxford, I can say that, I worked at Cambridge. Research at Oxford found that 2/3 of the articles about AI in the UK news are about products. 2/3. A full 33% of the sources cited of all sources cited in stories about AI are from industry. So the way we are framing the story about AI right now is one about products that are hitting the market and industries that are selling those products. Now, these sources have created a story, and I quote, this is the quote, "The expectation of a pseudo-artificial general intelligence, a collection of technologies capable of solving nearly any problem." Okay. A recent Canadian research article found similar results, concluding that tech news trends tend to be techno-optimistic. So what we're seeing in tech news tends to say that tech is going to solve these problems. That may be so. However, as a social scientist, I know these stories of inevitable progress and technological destiny have this incredible power to shape our future. That is, they don't just function as stories, they help us make decisions and choices. They shape our landscape for how we think about the future. And this is one of the critical challenges that we must address and confront how we discuss AI's future. So I think of this as a crisis of imagination, where by not hearing the voices of people outside the tech industry, the people who are most affected by these challenges, workers, educators, healthcare professionals, small business owners, civil society organizations, children, we're missing key opportunities to imagine futures in different ways. Who remains outside of these stories? Who else are we missing? Well, currently, the dominant stories about AI is really we're missing anybody outside of China or the US. Now, this imbalance, I think, has profound potential consequences. Namely, most people, when you talk to them, I'm looking at Lord Clement Jones, who is launching a project called Everyday AI. When you talk to most people, as we've done in the Public Voices Project, Responsible AI UK, as we've done in the Digital Good Network, as I do in my work with the Trade Unions Congress here in the UK, on a project that I'm working with the AI Security Institute. When you talk to people outside of our very educated circle, they experience AI as something that is happening to them, that they have absolutely no agency in. It's happening automatically, and it's beyond their influence or control. Citizens feel like they're these passive recipients of technological change rather than active participants in it. And frankly, this terrifies me, because if we're going to build a future that works for everybody, we need more people involved and more people helping to figure out how these technologies are going to change. Governments worry too. Governments are not immune to this. In the conversations that I'm privy to, they're still wringing their hands over what they can do to manage this transformation. Are companies too big and too powerful to regulate already? Will doing so hurt innovation? Will it hurt their country's growth? Will it dampen their future prospects? Those questions are questions that everybody is asking behind the closed doors. Now, the problem with this imbalance between people who feel like they're making and building the future and the rest of us who feel like it's just happening to us is that there are key questions that are not being answered. Now, those answers would help us think about what we want to do with AI, right? What's AI going to do to our jobs? How will it affect democratic processes and civic engagement? What impact will it have on our children's development? What's it doing to education? What's AI doing to a sense of self, our ways of knowing? What are we doing about the growing environmental costs of the computational revolution? Many people are not excited about asking these really thorny social and complex social questions. And they seem concerned about the consequences, but these consequences to them almost seem predetermined, right? We're going to get environmental impact, and so negative environmental impact, but there's nothing that can be done. I don't like this framing. So this disconnect between the confidence of the narratives that we're hearing from the tech sector and this widespread feeling of powerlessness, it represents more than just a mismatch of stories or communication challenge. I think it's a fundamental misunderstanding of how people use technology and what happens to technology in the process. And this is where I go geeky and a little professor on you, but I promise not for very long. So one of the basic concepts of human-centered AI is an idea called design in use. And this design in use concept really says we all participate in the design of technologies because we use them in ways that maybe designers didn't intend, because we finish or complete them by being the quote-unquote end user. We are the ones that actually make the stuff work. And so this future that we're all facing is not something that comes to us pre-designed. It's constructed, it's chosen through the decisions that each of us make. These decisions are made in corporate boardrooms, in government offices, in research laboratories, in civil society organizations. And the future that emerges from this is not going to be shaped by the sense of inevitability, but it's really about the choices we make around how we're going to develop, deploy, and govern these powerful technologies at hand, right? So what are we doing with them? I would add there's three things that we get out of taking a design in use framing here. And one is really we get to shift the terms of the debate. It's not that there are powerful technologies that are going to remake society. It's that we have to have simultaneous transformations, right? We've got a technical transformation, but we've got capacity building and transformation that has to happen. How are people going to take up, adopt, and use these technologies? I would argue that this narrow imagination that we've had is limiting our capacity to see human agency in that future. The answer lies in these shifts that must occur. We have to create new rules of the road that govern how we think about these technologies. The current regulatory and governance frameworks were designed for a different era. Policymakers are still finding their footing here. We need policies, yes, we need oversight mechanisms. We need flexible frameworks that match the pace of technology change. We have to rewrite the rules of the game. We have to address how societies are changing their social institutions, from the family to marriage, to education, to work, to lives, to government. All of these things potentially will change. And yet, if we recuse the sense of human agency, we won't be able to figure out how to navigate these changes intentionally. I believe this means expanding who gets to participate in conversations about AI development and deployment. I think it means ensuring that the voices of workers, educators, civil society organizations, affected communities really they're not just heard or paid lip service to, but they're integral to the design process. I think this is key for people in business to remember, because it's not that they are simply using products. They will complete the design, use these tools, and create new and sometimes interesting, exciting, and challenging different new ways of thinking through them. So this is a path forward that requires us to think through in new ways. We can think about it as automation takes work. And here I'll pause for just a moment to walk you through 15 years of what the construction industry said they were doing. When they started out with the tool called building information modeling, the forerunner to what we might call digital twins technology, they said that they were going to automate away a slice of professional work. And I went into the field with my team. We spent 4 years watching how teams struggled to use these tools. Now, the designers of the tools said, this is going to change how architects, engineers, and construction companies, large-scale construction companies, talk to each other on major projects. Sure, that may one day happen, but when we left the field, as of today, those radical and revolutionary changes have yet to be put into place. Now, that's not to say these technologies didn't work. Quite the contrary. I wouldn't have a good story to tell if that was the case. Instead, people on the ground, in meetings just like the one that I photographed here, figured out what they could do with this technology, how to make it work, and how to make it make sense in their workflows. And it's this kind of play, it's this kind of radical negotiation around new technologies that I don't see people having when we're talking about Gen AI workflows. So we framed this in our new book. We frame this in kind of 3 key processes, right? The first is talking about futuring work. Those stories we tell about the future, what we're telling about Gen AI right now, it's helping us shape the possibilities for what the future is. If you want to change the future, you might want to be thinking about how you tell stories about the future, because that helps inspire people to go through the process of transformation. The second really is on-the-ground negotiating practices. And by that I mean people in their jobs. We went into the field thinking that it was going to be the starchitects and the major engineers who were going to be the ones who would figure out this new automating technology. Instead, it was literally people on construction sites, in construction trailers, wearing hard hats and steel-toed boots. They were the ones figuring out how they were changing their work practices, their teamwork practices, and really bringing in those kind of new ways of negotiating around the tool. Without that work, the tool would have fallen flat. Nobody would be using building information modeling tools today. And then the third, and this is another geeky hat moment, and the third is rewriting institutions. To a social scientist, institutions are these large, durable sets of rules, right? Things like government, education, the family, church. People only go up and challenge those sets of durable rules when they see that there's some payoff. So in our case, the contracting system that governs how buildings are built, at least in the United States, goes back over 100 years. You think a piece of software is going to come in and completely walk over 100 years of legal practice? Well, that's what they all thought, and they're still waiting for that. So what strategies do we learn out of watching large-scale industrial transformation? I would say there are 5. The first, and I think the most important one, and one that is so critical to how we talk about Gen AI, is really resisting this sense of powerlessness, that the tools are going to do all the work. The second is really to play. When I go into conversations with young people, conversations with unions, I find out who's playing with the tools, who's using them, who thinks they're entitled or able to use them. And I'm a little shocked that, these so-called powerful technologies are not ones that people are actively picking up and figuring out what they might be able to do with. I think the third is really leveraging gains for good. Right now, the conversations around Gen AI in many workplaces, I hate to say it, is coming through as a product for individual workers. It's only when people understand what else they can be doing or what gains, how they might apply the gains, that we'll get true transformation in these technologies. The fourth is really to assert the humanity. The social aspects of these transformations are just as significant. And that's not just me as a social scientist trying to make sure that I have a job in the future. It is to literally say, if we want these technologies to work for people, we're going to have to really bring that social element in. We have to remake the rules to fit us. And that may be the final lesson that we take from our 15-year study of watching automation in construction. The process didn't end with people just figuring out new workflows. They had to go back to the fundamental rules that govern their society, govern their industry, and say, okay, what works for us? What can we change? What can we kind of fudge? What can we work around? And where do we need to start imagining and reimagining new kinds of, in their case, contracts? So with that, I'm going to give you a brief whistle-stop tour of the things that we're doing at the Minderoo Center for Technology and Democracy. One of the reasons I feel really confident coming into spaces like these and saying, the capability building work that we have in front of us is so vast is because of how much my own team is sprinting to keep up with the pace of demand. Here we see just this is the last 6 months, 5 different pieces of evidence or reports that we've written for policymakers trying to suggest the ways we need to be building new guidelines for how these tools and technologies are used. And I'll have a link at the end of the slides that you can do. I want to just pull out one before I open it up to questions. And that is work that we've done around AI, copyright, and productivity. We, about 6 months ago, released, 8 months ago, released this report, co-authored with a group called AI at CAM and the Bennett School for Public Policy. And this was a report that just tried to drill down what's happening with Gen AI technologies in one important key sector in the UK, in the creative industries. And we had a thesis that said, well, we could have productivity gains. That's great. That's one of the goals that people talk about in terms of these stories of what AI can do. What's happening in terms of how the creative sector itself is addressing and preparing for the challenges around copyright and the extraordinary challenges that are happening around the potential changes to copyright. This work continues, and next month we'll have the results of a year-long study with novelists. And I'll give you just a very sneak preview to that, where the novelists, there were 400 creative professionals in the UK that have been involved in this study, both novelists, publishers, editors, agents, and most novelists, 2/3 of the novelists, say that they have seen their employment, their income drop in the last year, which is a quick and rapid transformation to their kind of work. Overwhelmingly, they are opposed to choices around an opt-out, an opt-out model in which their works would be used to train AI models without permission. Overwhelmingly, 86, 87% are opposed to that. And most say that they think their work is so important to the future that they're worried about what these policy choices are. They're trying to find their own footing in terms of how they make these choices. I want to end on a bit of a call to action because it's too important, the work that we have before us, to simply think we can design products and design our way out of this problem. We have extraordinary opportunity, extraordinary potential here, but unless we're bringing together the people who will be part of this work, designing these products as they use them, as they integrate them into their own lives, then we'll be missing out on the potential for their creativity and their ability to help influence and build the future. And with that, we've got time for about 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Gina. That was a very, very good talk, very insightful. My question for you is, I feel like the polarization which we're witnessing within AI is perhaps a microcosm of broader societal polarization, where it feels like global elites, often in the technology space, are deciding the futures of society. And so I'm not sure if you agree with that, but if you maybe do, then do you think that we need to solve this problem at a higher level, at a societal level, or can witnessing it at this level and solving it at this level be a catalyst for broader societal change?
It's a great question. Do we need to solve polarization first, basically? I'm going to put a pin in that. Can we get a couple more, and then I'll respond?
Yes, hi, thank you. Really great presentation. Curious around the creators of different disciplines. You mentioned writers, but for example, artists, so, painters, etc. And there's also been there was a bit of an influx of digital art for a period, and now that has flatlined a bit. So what would be also your take on that, and what's the recommendation so that their work doesn't get plugged into a lot of the imaging creation that AI brings up? And while policies and rights are implemented.
Good. So again, how do we get that balance right? There's a question.
Hi, thank you very much. Very interesting to hear the kind of social shaping of technology voice in the room. We've had a lot of tech determinism, I think, over the last few days. I would like to ask you, do you feel that where we have a lot of these tech developer kind of owners, I guess, coming out and saying, oh, this technology is running away with us and it's going to ruin the world, but I'm not stopping building it, sorry for you. Do you think the media has a moral obligation to step in here and play a part in balancing these voices, or do you think that's the role of government to play?
And maybe the final two questions, and then I'll try to sum up.
So I'm a devil's advocate now. If AI takes our jobs away, and job and work gives obviously meaning to life, we will find something else. But if I'm the guy putting the tires on the Ford in their production facility, and that job is taken away through automation, do we really believe that that person sits down, paints a vision board, and then starts doing origami because this is the inner self?
Yeah. I may start with you. That's great. And last question.
A fabulous presentation, and one that's so provoking, my mind is in Stack Overflow mode. But I would like to say, you touched on something that's very interesting, you touched on people in general feeling a lack of agency in their life. And this is something that correlates with depression enormously. People who don't have agency just give up. My worry is, and I think shared, that Gen AI is going to take away even more agency rather than give it back if we're not cautious. So I suppose my question to you is, if you tried to boil down into a paragraph how it might be possible to frame generative AI in a way that would give agency back to people, not billionaires, how would that work?
I would love to be able to answer that in one line. I don't know that I or anybody has the final question, but to tie this question to the penultimate one, I was incredibly inspired by these career construction workers. So the people we studied came from electrical, plumbing, mechanical installation companies. They're the people who would have installed these fabulous sound systems in this room, the lighting systems, the air conditioning systems, etc. And when forced to use this automating tool, building information modeling, building information management, they really framed it like, we're going to be out of work, because the work they were doing was taking months to coordinate how their systems fit into a building, right? It's not high-end engineering. It wasn't beautiful architectural work. It was literally helping to guide the field installation of these systems. And so they are not the professional visionaries or origami makers, right? But they know their job, and they knew it really well. And they basically started, not in the first project, or the third project, or the 10th project, but at the end of the first 4 years of this, they started asking questions and saying, what else could we be doing here? How could we use this thing, and how could we use it to give the client back something? And how could we use it to transform and create a new kind of service? And that's what happened. So it's also my question to the artists and the creators and the writers. I'm not saying use Gen AI tools. In fact, our research is showing there's quite a resistance to using Gen AI tools in the creative sector, right? But what is the new thing that's going to come out? And it's not going to come out because of AI. It's going to come out because somebody sees the gains that happen, and they figure out how to apply it because they have deep and tacit knowledge. So I didn't solve polarization, but I will say the thing that does keep me awake at night is, what are we doing to, not the experts who are going to be the ones doing this, and I mean experts in all sorts of fields. I actually do worry about the early job market. And that's something that we need now. We need careful and quick attention to make sure that we're building a kind of future where young people are not hopeless. They're not giving up on society. They're not turning to solutions that are false solutions, but they're really building into something that they feel a part of. And that's why I think literally the conversations like the ones you're having here show how high the stakes are and the work that we have to do. And with that, I want to thank the organizers and thank all of you. Thanks for your time and attention.